Hi, everybody. It's Ben Ash from Sam Ash Music here with another live stream, thanks to our friends at Korg. My guest is arguably the hardest working man in show business, and this is even competing with James Brown, who has that title. This guy is the musical director for pretty much any live event you've seen. He probably is involved in some way. He was recently involved with that halftime show at the Super Bowl, the really insanely amazing one. He was the music director at the Oscars, the Grammys. He's also the music director on The Masked Singer, the new show That's My Jam. I mean, he's if that isn't busy just from the past month, let alone the past year, I don't know what to tell you. But I'm super excited to interview our next guest because I'm sure he's got a lot of insight and tons of stories to tell. And we're going to, of course, talk about the Korg Nautilus. So if you have any questions about that, please ask. And let's introduce my guest, uh, my friend and yours, Adam Blackstone. And here he is. Adam,
Woo!
what's up?
I had to cheer for myself.
We got a
Woo!
little cameo from our friend Tom.
My man
But Adam,
Tom.
what's going on, man?
How are you, Sam? Good to see you, man.
It's actually Ben, but I know we do look a lot alike.
Uh, Ben.
Yeah, don't worry about it. I get when I turn my head, everyone just calls me Sam, and I just accept that as is because we're
That's
both two
actually
tall, bald men.
not cool, but it's all good.
Ah,
Sam,
don't worry about it. We're having some fun.
good to see you. Good to see you, Ben. I appreciate you having me, bro.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome because I can safely say I've watched a lot of your content, so to speak, without knowing you were the man behind the scenes. But from what I understand, you are a multi instrumentalist, and keyboard isn't even your first instrument. It's just something you've now adopted, correct?
I was forced into it by my father. um, I would say drums would have been my first instrument, but that's because I played drums first and grew an affinity to love drumming. What happens though in black church is when there's an instrument needed, my dad was like, "You're playing organ today. You're playing
Right.
bass today. You're playing piano today." And I was like 6, 7, 8 years old, and I was just like, "Okay." And
Yeah.
but I do realize too, in my as I got older, for me it all starts with the piano, man. Everything, whether it be harmonies on the bass, whether I'm scoring, whatever, it all starts here. Whether I'm tracking drums or anything like that, I'm actually coming to a keyboard to visually see, where my chord structure begins. And so I'm thankful about those early piano lessons that I hated, and I'm very thankful for the piano teachers that put up with me crying, and and all of that. I think I'm thankful for my football coach for cutting me and making me go to the marching band.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, so all of that good stuff. God's plan is His plan, and it turned out to be a good plan.
Well, it's great that you have this background and you had drums and piano. If like I could recommend two instruments everyone should start out on, it would be one or the other, but the fact that you have both means you have the melodic and the
Yep.
rhythmic aspects. So everything else you pick up is only going to be easier. Excuse
Absolutely,
me.
absolutely. It all starts to me with the foundation of rhythm. So, and then add harmony on top of that. So those instruments. And funny enough, I moved around second grade, and my family, pretty affluent family in music in our town locally. And so the band director said, "Hey, we have 10 million drummers. Like, we don't have a bass player. I know, your family plays music. I think it would be cool for you to switch to the bass in second grade." I'll never forget this, Mr. Matlack. And I said, "Heck no. I don't want to carry that thing home." This is when we used to walk to school. The young kids may not know about that. But 'cause now they Uber and stuff. But no. So, man, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made to switch and officially switch, because that got my reading chops up, that got my foundation up, and really taught me the importance of harmony.
So if you're watching this, and maybe this sounds a little biased because I run a music store, but Adam's basically saying buy every instrument and try and learn everything. So
Buy
yes, that
everything,
definitely.
try everything. I promise you'll fall in love with something.
Yeah, I'm of the belief that everyone in this world is capable of playing or doing something musical. They just haven't found what that is. And it doesn't mean you're an instrumentalist. You could just be a producer. There are
For
tons
sure.
of people now that learned, oh, if I can just move things on a DAW, I can make a song. And that's considered being a musician. So
Yep, sequencing is huge right now, and some of our most favorite songs have been done, whether it be EDM stuff or hip hop stuff or whatever, with the drag and click of a mouse. And I would definitely consider those producers, those people, musicians as well.
totally. I mean, Lil Nas X found a Trent Reznor sample and made Old Town Road out of it, and he's doing okay. He's
He's
doing
doing all
pretty
right
okay.
for himself. I would have to say he's I think he's made something of himself for sure.
Yeah, and so that's what it is you can do it with little to nothing musically and, become someone like that, but we're here to talk about you because I'm curious to bridge this gap. You've said that you grew up in the church, basically playing anything you were asked to play, and then flash forward a few years later, you are a nominated, Emmy nominated, and Grammy Award winning musician who, I'm at the risk of name dropping, just for those at home that are like curious, he's been the music director for Justin Timberlake, Rihanna, Janet Jackson, Alicia Keys, Maroon 5. Just alone with that list, you could just retire with that on your resume. But I'm sure there's an extensive list of other people you've worked with. And as
Yeah,
I mentioned earlier, you did arguably one of the most talked about halftime shows ever with Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, 50 Cent, and Kendrick Lamar, which I'm sure to be a music director, trying to literally direct both your band and coordinating how all of these huge artists work together
yeah,
is daunting to say the least. But I can safely say, and I think most of America will agree that it went off without a hitch. But I'm sure behind the scenes, and I'm not looking for drama or anything. I'm just curious, first of all, what it takes to do something that enormous of a challenge, but also between what's that bridge that got you from just being a multi-instrumentalist to being this music director for these huge artists?
yeah. Great question. I think that first I have to say this was my third halftime show.
Oh, no kidding. Okay,
Yeah,
which ones did you do prior to that?
so I did Justin Timberlake in 2017. 2018. I apologize. I did Shakira and J Lo
Oh,
in
wow.
2020. I scored the national anthem for 2021, and then more recently did the Dr. Dre LA halftime. So I'm only bringing that up to say, each gig has prepared me for the next. And when I did Justin, which I still think is some of my greatest work personally because of, how many songs we fit into that 13 minutes, and, his way of moving throughout the stadium had never been done like that before. He like started in the stands, and the band appeared and stuff like that. But I would have to say like that prepared me, along with Shakira and J Lo's performance for this year's halftime, and just to manage the time expectations more than it is even musically. I hate to say it, a lot of MDing has a lot to do with the logistics of the show, and sometimes the music can tend to be a back burner based off of the magnitude of the show. Dr. Dre came at me and said, here are the songs that I want to do. You figure out what everybody else wants to do. So, managing those other 4 or 5 conversations to say, hey, everybody, what you want to do in 90 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever. And um,
Yeah, most
thankfully,
musicians have to worry about a half-hour set. You have to worry about a 5-minute set in some cases.
I have to worry about a 5 minute set. In this case, it was 13 minutes, but it was 5 artists. You know what I'm saying? And the Super Bowl being a catalog show, which means that people like to hear the hits and they want to do their hits. It's always a challenge to try and fit in everything, because you're gonna not please everybody, because we all have our own favorite songs of each artist. So I think that the biggest challenge for me this year was just making sure nobody was left out as a viewer and as a fan, and I feel like I did a good job at
Oh,
like
you did a phenomenal job, and I'm not saying
thank
this
you,
because
man.
of the live stream. I think when we all went to work on Monday morning, even if there was someone at work who isn't traditionally a fan of hip hop, they were like, "That was ridiculous." And
Appreciate that. And that was another thing for our culture, especially African American, hip hop R&B culture. I personally just wanted to create some new fans of our genre, and to
you
also
certainly did.
let people know that we belong on those stages, that style, the genre of music can compete with, Chili Peppers or Coldplay or Bruno or whatever. And I think we did a good job representing that for sure.
Yeah, and you were saying about balancing how to make the customer, that's my speak, the audience,
Our
happy.
audience, yes.
But what I also worry, and this is nothing not to be disparaging, I'm sure with those names like Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, and 50 Cent, you're also having to balance ego. And I'm not saying that anyone is egocentric, but you want every artist to also feel like they had their time to shine in a
Yeah, well,
respectful way with enough time, not like hi and bye kind of thing.
absolutely, and that stems from relationships, though, and so that's a great segue to just say that another part of being a musical director is for myself to check my own ego and to know that I am in a position to try and make my artist elevated. And so I try to give everybody 100%. That's how I was able to thrive as a young MD as well, young bass player, because even as I was doing multiple gigs, nobody felt slighted. You know what I mean? Everybody, and sometimes to the detriment of my own self or my own sleep and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's like, those relationships are invaluable, and they can't, you can't buy trust from somebody, especially in our element of musicianship. And the main reason I say that is because now that Dr. Dre, or at the time when Dr. Dre said, "Hey, Adam is going to curate this whole thing," everybody's ego was checked because they know I have their best interest at heart. You know what I mean? Nobody really came to me on any type of trip because they know my job. I will always make sure that they are brought to the light and to the forefront the best of my ability, and I have their um, I want to represent them at all times. So it's been easy now. Those relationships have been 20 years in the making. You know what I mean? So it doesn't happen overnight. It happens by doing great quality work, no matter what stage I'm on, whether I'm at the Super Bowl or whether I'm at the restaurant lobby or whether I'm at a jazz club or whether I'm here, at the studio or whatever. Those relationships and that trust happens throughout the course of a career.
Well, that's the thing that I've noticed. I have friends of mine from I'm not saying they still do this, but I've had friends because I know a lot of musicians, and you can tell that they will get amped and psyched to do a show like at a huge arena or a stadium, and then they'll just kind of do half as much work for the small thing. But the thing is, people talk. They'll go, "Yeah, so and so did a gig at the club, but he just wasn't all there. I don't know if we could hire them to do the big thing."
Yeah,
So
the
it really
interesting part is the smaller things matter more in this industry, and the reason
people
why,
talk about the smaller things
and
more.
it's a more intimate space of where you can actually connect with people to see who's doing what. Going to Staples Center or SoFi Stadium or Hollywood Bowl, you know, you expect a quality show. But if I go to, a cafe or something like that, and you never know who's watching, you never know who's going to walk in, it's like, quality matters no matter where you are. And I try to tell a lot of young musicians and MDs that no matter where you are, I don't care if it's a local church, a jazz restaurant, or a club or school or whatever, somebody is always watching you. Your gig that you're on now is the audition for the next gig, and you never know who was in that room to call you for that next big
And nowadays, with everyone who has a smartphone, they could be filming you at the gig and forwarding it over to say, "Look how great this guy was at this small club," or worse, "Look how terrible they were. Upload this to YouTube so we can get some views." So
Absolutely,
you
absolutely.
always want to be on your best behavior, and you always want to be at your best. Period.
Yeah, the drummer that actually did the Super Bowl, one of the drummers, Devin Webster, I found him at a church, and I was like, you know, this kid has something special. because I saw how important it was for him to, really command the music at that church. And they were running tracks and playback and click, and I always kept my eye on him. And so when the opportunity came to do Eminem in like '09, 2010, he was one of my first calls, and he stepped up to the plate, and here we are, now doing the Super Bowl. So you never know who's watching you for sure.
If you weren't paying attention to what he just said and you're rewatching this, rewind it and watch because it really goes to show it's so important to be at your best at all times. Like
All time.
have a smile on your face, do your absolute best cuz these stories happen all the time. Like it isn't just in the movies where someone gets discovered at a club. It happens. You just got to keep playing and the right person might show up.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I mean, we can talk about this. I could talk about the Super Bowl all day, but there's so much in your repertoire of and your resume that I'm so curious about. Like one thing, okay, this is so random, but I need to know this as a music director.
Yeah.
When you do the Oscars and you got to play somebody off,
Yes.
what is the rules and regulations? Like, do you make the call? Does a producer call you in the ear? Do you sometimes get reluctant when you're like, oh, my favorite actor's on stage? I'm very curious about that. That one little thing.
That's a good question. I think over the years, throughout different shows I've done, I've realized that what I would call the pacing and the tempo of a show. I can kind of anticipate when somebody's wrapping up an award, or when they say, "Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Jamie Lee Curtis." It's like, I can kind of anticipate, and that's also me doing my research on. I'm really a music geek at heart, and so what I did for this year's Oscars, which was one of the hardest gigs I've ever done in my life,
No kidding.
I tried to research on our script who was coming out when and what style of music they liked. And so that's how we ended up breaking up the Oscars into three different segments, which had never been done before. I had a
That's very cool.
Yeah, I had a DJ do the first hour, DJ D Nice. I had my all-star band, which was myself, Robert Glasper, Travis Barker, Sheila E, do the second hour, and it just brought this different nostalgic kind of cool progressive thing. And then the last hour and the more traditional hour, which were the bigger awards, Best Picture, Best Director, I went back to the traditional orchestra. So I tried to, really flip it a little bit, because each of
That
those
is very cool. And I don't think most of us even notice that.
Yeah, each of those play-ons mean something to people. You know what I mean? And like, as I'm writing the cues and as my team is scoring and orchestrating, I'm like, okay, Puff Daddy's coming out. Let's not play him on soft. Let's do some hip hop. You know what I'm
Sure.
saying? Like, what has strings? I'm like, oh, okay, hate me now. So I'm like, you can hate me now, da 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 da. Or, one of the things was Kevin Costner walking out, and so you would think this big anthemic, lush thing, but I ended up doing like a Bodyguard soundtrack song, which I love doing.
Perfect.
You know what I mean? So that's just two examples of, but it was tailor made per um, artist and per actor and actress that was coming on. And those three segments really were able to lift the Oscars, because at times that show can get boring for the viewer. And so we tried to keep it, it's a 3 hour show. We tried to keep it very entertaining.
Well, I gotta say, it's what's great is no, it was. I didn't know you were gonna leave that on a question. No, it was insane.
I
I
mean,
love myself some live stuff.
that was a clip. That was a cliffhanger. Were you
No, 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 man.
entertained?
I love live television. I watch all the awards shows, no matter if it's music or movie or television. I'm always curious if this. I could go into that, but whatever.
Yeah, so
Anyway,
we,
I
we do we do get the cue, and it's a scripted show. It's when as far as when it comes to who's walking out when. When I say scripted, I want to be perfectly clear that those walk-ons and those playoffs are definitely in a rundown. This is what award
sure.
is next. This is who's presenting this award. When the voice, what we call VOG, voice of God, announces that person, I'm getting that cue and having my orchestra or band ready to, pretty much culminate the ending of that sequence. So it's a big production in our in ears for sure.
One last question just about the Oscars that I'm curious is,
No problem.
do you also do the non-televised music direction or just when it's on television?
I this year I just did the televised.
Okay. So
Yeah.
then that's great. And then obviously you must. Oh, by the way, I forgot that you did stuff with Robert Glasper and Sheila E. and Travis Barker because I heard about that. And oh
Yeah.
man, that is just what a interesting but such an awesome lineup. Like,
It was incredible. Rob is so phenomenal. Another Korg
yeah,
guy as well. You know, he man, he's been playing Chronos I think since the beginning, right, Tom? And like, 6, 7 years, and when he can't have a Steinway, his go to is the Korg Chronos, and I'm getting everybody um, into this Nautilus as well.
yeah, man.
So
I guess you're praising the gospel. That's the Nautilus. Everyone's talking about it right now.
it's pretty incredible, man. It's pretty incredible. I did my first show with. I know we just did a transition, but my first show with it was the Rihanna Fenty Amazon Savage show.
Oh, cool.
I scored that whole show with this keyboard, man. It was
That's
incredible.
We've talked about the Nautilus before, but it still blows my mind how much like it's basically a computer
It
because
is.
the fact that you're able to just be like, I have my keyboard and that's all I need. Technically, you don't need a computer. I'm sure it makes things a little easier, but the fact that you're able to do such a huge show like that, that Rihanna did with just a Nautilus and it's sounding the way it did.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had the help of other musicians, but to coordinate all that is
Well,
incredible.
some of it, a lot of it, I'm gonna be honest and say a lot of it was programmed with this keyboard. You know, when we did do some band things, of course that was other musicians, but remember that is looked at as a fashion show. So
Right.
even just walking the runway, which would happen to be the Hollywood Hotel this year, but like the runway and the transitions and some of the elevator sequences, because it's shot like a movie, and
Right.
so a lot of it, yeah, for sure, came right from this keyboard.
Yeah, because oh, by the way, speaking of the keyboard, first of all, is that your personal one, or do you use a different Nautilus, like as far as how many keys?
It depends on the gig. This is not my personal one, but this is the 61, and yeah, I love it, man. It's really, really good. One of the things that Korg has done to me better than any other um, manufacturer is the main, what we call main key sound. So pianos, electric pianos, organ. You can carry this keyboard, man, and close your eyes and not know that you're not in a Steinway Hall somewhere or something, or. So it's really, really good. The pianos are good. They're all over the radio, records. I'm doing Coachella this weekend. I'm playing this keyboard, so it's awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah, let's hear some stuff.
I mean, just piano sound is like probably my favorite. It feels like I'm, literally on a grand. So I don't know. This is deep, grand, dry
Yeah,
ambience.
the sounds on that thing are amazing. And
So crazy.
by the way, if you already own a Korg Kronos, you can just take all of that and throw it into your Nautilus if you get that, because they basically work the same. It's kind of the like if it was Kronos 2.0, it's kind of the Nautilus. We won't
I
get
would
into the
say
weeds.
yes. Yeah, Chronos 2.0. It has an incredible engine in it that to me even is even more user friendly at times. With the screen and the limited buttons and stuff like that, like everything is right at your fingertips. So yeah, get into this, people. Get into this. This is the
Yeah.
new thing.
And we've got it in stock. Just I forgive me for derailing. I'd be remiss if I didn't say we have them in stock. We've got the 61, the 73, and the 88, and these have some price drops. So you can save like $400 on, well, 200 on this one, but 400 on the 88. So am I doing the math right? Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. When it's anyway. And then this one isn't price drop, but it's still a pretty damn good deal. And yeah, you might say 2 grand. That seems a little pricey, but it's one of those things you spend money on it like a nice Les Paul, and you're probably gonna have this at least for 20, 30 years
I
and
agree.
never get rid of it. The only thing you might do is get another keyboard, not a replacement keyboard. But I
Tom,
digress.
Tom always teases me. I have my Triton. I have my Triton Extreme, like my Chronos, all set up together because it's like to me those keyboards are so classic, and you literally have those for 20 years, and this is the next step into that lineage.
Yeah, you apparently have quite
Thousands
the
and
Korg
hundreds.
collection. You have the MS-2000, I heard, Triton, Kronos, King Korg,
Yeah,
SV1 and 2, or one or the other, and now you got
one.
this guy.
Yep, I got that. I have even more than that, man. I have the micro Korg, which is one of my favorites for a
Love
very
that
long
thing.
time. I did a bunch of Janet Jackson sessions with the micro Korg. Uh, yeah, I don't remember the radius. I got that set up. I just have, I'm a Korg connoisseur, so like, I'm having so much fun, kind of reliving because even this engine has a lot of those legacy sounds in it, and so having a good time with this new Nautilus.
So I know we're limited on time, so I want to make sure I get everything out there. So a question about the Masked Singer. We don't have to delve too much into that show because people know what it's about.
Yes.
But do you practice the songs with those singers, or do you prepare the song and those singers go live with the silly costume and all that?
So I did Mass Singer season 2, an incredible, life-changing, fun, silly, hard experience. I actually think that they are on season 6 or 7 right now, which is
That's
awesome.
nuts.
Shout out to Fox and the whole Mass Singer team, and I think the music team over there is incredible. But yes, we do practice with the unmasked contestants, because one of the things that I have to do no matter what shows, I have to make sure the key is correct for them. I like to make sure and tailor the arrangements to the artist specifically on that show because if it's a rock and roll person or if it's an athlete or if it's an R&B person or an actor or something like that, they may not be able to just flat out sing it the proper way that a karaoke version would just have it be. So I tailor specifically that season. I tailored each individual song for each individual contestant, and Wayne Brady won my season. He was very hands on in the creative
I
process.
imagine that dude's a professional.
He's so incredible. He can sing his tail off, act his tail off, comedic genius. And so he knows my musical aptitude and how I span genre. So we pushed the envelope a lot with him specifically. But I had like Daughtry on that season. I had my girl Raven Simone was on there. I
Fun fact,
had
I actually knew Raven when I was like a toddler. She used to live in the
what?
same building as me. I don't know if she even knows that. Like, for all I know, she's like, I don't know that. But yeah, they used to live in the same
Yo,
building as my parents, and we were like good childhood friends. And then Raven did Cosby Show and a few other things, and
I
nothing.
think
No, I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm just saying that's just how life works.
I think she did well for herself. um, but yeah, even that we can talk about that. But like meeting these stars, Victor Oladipo, who at the time was playing for Indiana Pacers, such an amazing singer. People didn't know. I had Miss Patti LaBelle on there, and at that time she was one of the first like legendary icons that had done the show. So it was a great experience for me, man, and something that I will always cherish for sure.
Yeah, because it's so interesting. Because I know the world blows up on the web when they're like, "Who's who?" And so I was like, "Well, there's gotta be a way that" I don't know if you have to sign an NDA to be like, you can't disclose who you're practicing with or anything like that, because it is so top secret to
It's
not know.
super hush hush, man. And I think that, that's more of a character, inside thing, excuse me. That's more of a character thing that, any of these shows I'm doing, whether it's the Super Bowl or Mass Singer or That's My Jam or the Oscars, it's like, I don't want to give away anything because I want it to still be entertaining television for the viewer. And then, it takes a little of the mystique out when you prepare something so well and people know what's going on. So,
Right.
I think that's with any project that I'm working on.
Well, it's so in and, I mean, I wanna ask about That's My Jam, but what I find so interesting is that if people haven't figured it out yet, you've clearly not only have performed with the biggest of the biggest names just in music. But the fact that you've met so many different personalities, so many different people who have different styles of music they play, some that
Yeah.
aren't even considered musicians, is such an it's so interesting how well-rounded you are as a music director, that you've met so many people. So as I can assume that as a professional music director, you probably have a leg up on most. That's not to say that other music directors are less talented, but considering the vast array of people you've met, I think there's so much. And we don't have time obviously on this, but I imagine you have so much advice as far as how to approach different people in different settings, because you've done award shows, reality shows, live shows. You've met actors, musicians,
Hmm.
and even like streamers, I'm sure, and like just anybody who has a career in something. And so I just think I'm just saying it's just incredibly fascinating how well-rounded you are as
Thank
far as
you.
your career has gone. But
Yeah, I think
go
that
on.
a lot of that, has to do with my love for pop music and pop culture, and I don't necessarily just mean, I mean popular music. You know what I mean? And that spans genres. It's like, somebody's favorite genre is country. That's popular to them. Somebody's favorite genre is jazz. Like that's popular to them. So I've always tried to be that well-rounded guy. I think reading music allows me to do that as well because I've in different areas and facets of my career, a chart has been plopped in front of me, and it has the feel written in that I know exactly, where it should be and where I should study, and some other things are learned by ear. But at the same time, you want to know directly where the origin of that style of music is coming from. So, for instance, when I got the Janet Jackson gig in '08, '09 or something like that, for 2 months I just lived Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis like that. I was them. You know what I mean?
That's how you got to
because I
do it, though. You got to
because I
live and
wanted to
breathe
engulf
Janet stuff.
myself. Yeah, I wanted to engulf myself into where their heads were when they were creating this incredible music. Same thing when I started working with Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. Was like I really embraced the Nashville culture and country music as a whole, and wanted to play that authentically as well. I didn't want to bring my gospel side or my hip hop side or my R&B side into country, and vice versa. So when I'm doing a gospel record or a segment, I don't want to necessarily play it like a country dude either. I want to try to be as authentic as possible. So I think learning to read and just having big ears and not looking down on any genre of music has allowed me to span the people and the reach that my music has had on people. When I learning through Jimmy Fallon and That's My Jam, and even watching my big brothers, The Roots, you know, actors and actresses have a different playlist.
Yeah.
They're not all, my friends and I listen to one thing, but like, um, Bradley Cooper listens to something totally else. So when I know he's coming on the show, I kind of got to dive into what that is. You know what I mean? Or Reese Witherspoon is like a huge country head, so it's like I want to dive into what that is. So I'm playing as authentic as possible when these people come and join us for a music segment.
So, yeah, no, I that's really cool because some, God forbid, there are some musicians that they only know one thing and they try to force that on every situation. Like I know metal guitar players that if you ask them for a blues jam, get ready for a blues metal jam because they won't be able to just change it on a dime. But
That's a vibe though too. That just might be a
it's
whole
a
separate.
vibe when invited, but if you're there with like a bunch of, forgive the term, boomers, if you will, and they just want to hear some good blues and you're just shredding, they're going to be like, "No, man, I'm just here for a beer. Let's just relax."
I
But
got you. I got you.
I couldn't help but notice you said the Roots, and That's My Jam, and that's all like that Jimmy Fallon sphere. So I'm
Yeah,
curious,
that's
how do
my favorite.
you? Because I'm a big fan of the Roots. How do you know them? Is it through music? Is it through something else? Like you
Yeah.
said,
So
my big, like they're like your big brothers. So how does?
yeah, they pretty much raised me in the game. I'm an honorary root, but when I moved to Philadelphia in 2000 to go to college from New Jersey, I was doing every gig, man, whether it was, a jazz gig on Upright or bar mitzvahs and restaurants and school. And, I found myself um, at a open mic spot called the Five Spot in Philly. And unbeknownst to me at that time, it was run by the Roots. And I used to just show up there and be ready and be the guy that was ready to play and hopping on for free and just backing these open mic artists. And also at that time, anybody could come through there. So this is 2000, 2001, 2002. You could have Jill Scott in there, Music Soul Child, Erica Badu, Indy
Get out.
Irie,
That's
Kenny
insane.
Lattimore. Just a vibe. It was a vibe. It was at the boom of what we call neo soul. And
Yeah.
so I was able to meet the Roots crew and Questlove, Black Thought, Sean G, who was their manager at the time, and still is, and now he manages me and has been managing me. And Richard Nichols, rest in peace, who was their founding member and producer. Leonard Hub as well on the bass. Man, they all just really embraced me because they saw my passion for music. They saw my passion for the culture. They saw my passion for wanting to be better. I was a studio rat, meaning like I would just sit there and watch them at sessions and just be prepared, wishing, hoping for a little bit of luck, but being prepared in that moment. And I got that shot. And Amir and James Poyser, who's another one of my big brothers and Philadelphia production icon, um, we were playing for Jay Z while the Roots were doing Unplugged with Jay Z, and Amir Questlove brought me on to just play bass for the Jay Z farewell concert called Fade to Black. At that time, he was retiring and stuff like that, and I was ready. And quick rundown story, and this I always like to say this, but from that gig alone, that was 2003 at Madison Square Garden, probably one of my first big gigs ever. I met a guy during that rehearsal and show process, pink polo shirt from Chicago. He said, "Hey man, I see how you're doing this, and the diligence you're working for. After this is done, you should come vibe with me and come rock with me." I said, "Sure, man. Let's exchange contacts. I would love to hear some of your music." That was Kanye West. You know what I mean? And from
Say what?
Kanye, yeah. So from Kanye, I started
Dude.
rocking with Kanye. From Kanye, I met this girl, little Barbadian girl, came to our show and she said, "Hey, I love what you're doing with Kanye." When her team came and sought me out and said, "After Kanye, come rock with us." That was Rihanna. You know what I mean? From Rihanna, I met this kid from Toronto, little light skinned kid. He said, "Hey man, I rap after you done with Ree. Like I would love to work with you." That was
I was on
Drake.
this show, Degrassi. You may have watched it.
Yeah, so I'm saying that all of that to say it's like we talked about it a little earlier, but putting your best foot forward no matter where you are. You never know who's watching. You never know also, here's another key, Ben, who the next superstar is going to be.
I was gonna say, man,
You
you're the
cannot
fact that
you
you
cannot shun people based off of, who you're playing for now or whatever, because you never know when you're going to need
that's why I
those
say
people.
even in my line of work, be kind and courteous to everyone, no matter how big and small. And if things don't go great, don't burn bridges.
Hmm.
Keep the drama out of it because especially if you haven't established yourself and you're trying to, you want to come on because people talk, they do. And
Oh
so
yeah,
like you met Rihanna before she was Rihanna, you met Drake before he was Drake, you met Kanye before he was Kanye, and you didn't know they were going to all be superstars in their own right. You were just like,
not at
"Oh, you're a
all.
musician? Let's hang out and get together."
Yeah, let's jam.
And what I imagine is when you've developed this rapport and this relationship with them at the beginning, and in some cases became music director for some of them, that they all talk. They all tell their friends, "You know what? You know who my MD is. I'm not going on tour right now, but you should work with so and so."
Absolutely.
And that's how that people talk, man. But
Word of
I
mouth is the best resume for sure.
oh man, it's so cool how like how you develop these relationships. But speaking of which, now I remember. So I'm curious from your very specific perspective, when Questlove won the Oscar, first of all, what was your reaction sitting there in the crowd knowing your friend just won a freaking Oscar. I mean, I can't even believe that's a sentence. But did you do anything also quirky with the music when you realized he won, like as a little nod to see if you'd figure it out, or did you just do your normal gig, or even just celebrate afterward?
So that was an awkward moment um, during the show. Uh,
Oh, forgive
but
me.
no,
Right.
no, no, it's okay. But I'm so happy for him, man. And that's my brother. And it sounds so crazy, but I just knew he was going to win because he deserves it. And I'm rooting for all of my friends at all time. Um, he put a lot of work into Summer of Soul, and I think we played a nod from Curtis Mayfield during his vote,
Cool.
and yeah, I just I tackled him afterwards and grabbed his trophy and tried to leave with it. He wouldn't let me. Uh, and then the following week, he wins a Grammy for the same thing. So he had a good week, I would say.
Both of you did, it seems. I mean, it's
Yeah.
I actually funny enough, not to like toot Sam Ash's horn, but from what I understand, someone pointed out they go, if you watch the documentary carefully, I think Sly Stone is using, which don't exist anymore, Sam Ash music amplifiers in the background.
Oh wow.
So if someone was like, I would never think to find that in anything, movie, television, or otherwise, but someone's like, yeah, if you look right there. So I was like, so now I got to
Yeah.
rewatch it. But
Yeah.
man, oh man, it was great. He deserved it
He does,
100%.
man. He's such an incredible music like historian genius.
I don't
I
know how he
tell people
sleeps.
I tell people all the time he's my MD. You know what I mean? Like my music life MD, and he's sung me so many bass lines over the phone or even in person, and giving me references when I first moved to Philly. Like, hey, I know you're into jazz and church, but like listen to these records. This is what we do here, and so I'm so indebted to him and thankful for him and kind of looking over me musically for sure.
Yeah, I've been reading his book, Music is History, and it's fascinating so far. I'm still in the 70s era, but man,
Oh,
oh man.
you got a long way to go.
Yeah, I'm a patient guy. Thank goodness I have the audiobook version as well. So when
Right.
I'm in the car, I'm listening, or if I'm at work, I'm listening, and then otherwise I'm reading it. But anyway, I know we're about to wrap up, so I just want to make sure we didn't forget anything. But first of all, let me just say thank you because this has been super enlightening. Even though this isn't my career path, obviously I'm kind of doing the family business, but I hope people have garnered some insight from what you said, which to sum up is basically try to be as musical as possible. Sit in any musical situation as possible. You don't necessarily have to even be doing anything. You just have to be present, like in the
That's
studio.
it. Be present.
Um, and make relationships with everybody and anybody. Don't discount anybody thinking, well, they're not big. I don't need to talk to them. Talk to everybody, get to know everybody. Because if you get that Rolodex going and you make a good impression on people, either from your talent or your personality, you're going to go far in this industry. Some people rarely just do it from, I'm like, they're the Justin Biebers that get discovered on YouTube, and that's how they get it. But for the hardworking musicians, this is how you got to do it. There's no other way. And proof is with you, Adam. I mean, you
Yeah.
like
And
we
listen,
I've
I not to go back, but like Instagram and YouTube is such an incredible vehicle that I didn't have growing up. So it's no slight to the people that do that because I have also have gotten recommendations from people on YouTube. I found one of my favorite singers on YouTube who works with me now, years and years ago, Jade Nova. You know, I know you mentioned Justin Bieber. I found guitar players, or I can just type in anything. I can type in female guitar, and it's like it'll just come up, and
yeah, man.
it's such an important vehicle. So use that social media as well, but also be prepared when you get that call. I think that's the main thing that I'm trying to drive home is that don't get so stuck in front of the camera that you're not a people person, you're not a good character person, and
And
you're
get on stage because there's a lot of people who practice in a bedroom and then suddenly they have to perform on stage. They're like, I don't know what to do with my instrument. I don't know how to walk on. You got to get that vibe going. You got to feel what it's like to be on stage prior to being asked to perform at Madison Square Garden. But speaking of socials, though, I do want to say if you want to know more about what Adam is up to, And speaking of which, I do want to lead that into, apparently you have an upcoming album, if I'm not mistaken.
So I just told myself that I am going to work on my album this summer.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
it was kind of what I did at the Grammys with Nas is kind of a precursor to that. So if you want to check that out from
And
last
that was
year,
cool as hell. So I'm very excited what this means.
yeah. So looking forward to that process. It's scary, but I want to build legacy from myself and my children. And I think this is one way to do that. Life is so short, man. I'm so thankful for the things that God has allowed me to do. But I would love when you type in my name that my own music comes up too. So that's the next evolution in what I'm doing.
Well, you see it at the bottom of your screen. Search Adam Blackstone or at Adam Blackstone. You'll probably get only one result, and it's this guy. And also, he does have a website. So if you want to know what he's up to in general, I'll share that. You got this handsome devil on the screen. Scroll down, you can learn about everything he's up to. Look at that. Look at him rocking the bass, telling someone, hey, lower the mic. Or, but yeah, you can, and oh, look at that. JT. So yeah, he knows a few people, but you can find him on adamblackstone.com. Like I said before, you can go to samash.com and you can get the Nautilus keyboard, which,
Oh
as
yeah.
we've discussed, is Adam's main tool for all things music. Yeah, and I'm very excited to hear that album. Definitely follow him on social so you know all the updates, where you'll be able to stream and or buy the album when it comes out. I'm certainly going to stream and buy it because we
Appreciate
got to
that.
support
Appreciate that.
musicians. They don't can't do this
Appreciate
for
it.
free. But also you can follow us on social media at Sam Ash Music. You can follow. Oop, that's hold on. It's Korg USA. I gotta fix that. Let's do that. It should be that guy. There we go. I had from another live stream. So Korg USA, and you can find them. You can buy the Korg Nautlius. And before I go, I want to make sure I checked all my boxes. I think we covered it all. But like I said, man, you are a very fascinating individual. I'm personally, I'm going to follow you on socials, let alone Sam Ash Music, because I want to know what you're up to. Because it's
Awesome.
so fascinating what you have done, and I can't imagine what, like, I wouldn't be surprised if if you haven't already, but you get invited to the White House for a performance or something like that. I mean, I don't know how
I
you get
mean,
hired.
we've been there, done that, man.
Oh, that's old hat.
That's
That's
my
old
boy,
news.
my
Give
boy
me a
Barack.
challenge.
That's my boy. That's my boy.
Yeah, okay. So
Shout out
you've
Barack. Shout out Michelle. Those that's family right there.
there you go. Oh man, I think the shorter list is what haven't you done, and I don't even know what that
Well,
is.
I'm
But
I'm very much looking forward to the new things, man. It's always, no ceilings for what I feel like is out there, and so each gig is just a stepping stone to the next thing. I know they are big time things, but like there's always another level, no matter what you're doing.
well, I'll certainly be watching and along for the ride. And again, Adam, thank
Thank
you
you,
so
brother.
much, as well
Great to
as our
talk to
friends.
you, Ben.
Yeah, and thanks to our friends at Korg for making this happen, and thanks to all of you for watching or rewatching. On that note, if you're not shopping at Sam Ash Music, we highly encourage it because we're pretty great. And if you are still shopping with us, thank you for being a wonderful customer and for watching this. And we hope to see you next time. So, on that note, take care, Adam, and take care, everybody.
Peace.